Welcome to this lesson on proving shape properties. In this lesson, we are going to be using the different formulas that we have used, distance, midpoint, and slope, to prove properties about geometric shapes. So first you need to determine what formula to use in each problem. So you have a little a cheat sheet right below. So for distance, you're going to be looking for things about the lengths of the sides, the perimeter of the shape, the type of shape, like is it a rectangle or a square, does it have congruent sides, and then area. For midpoint, the only time you're really going to use midpoint is to determine if the diagonals of a shape bisect each other, because it would be the middle of both diagonals. And then for slope, you're going to be looking for parallel or perpendicular sides, or if it has a right angle. Okay, so number one, determine if the triangle is scalene, isosceles, or equilateral. So that would be the type of shape, and it's based on the lengths of the sides. Remember, scalene has no equal sides. An isosceles triangle has two equal sides. And an equilateral has all equal sides. Okay, so in order to determine if the sides are all equal or all different, we need to know the distance or the length of all the sides. So I need to know the distance from A to B, the length of line segment AB, from B to C, and from C to A, using the distance formula. Okay, so you can write it out in your calculator, or write it out on your paper, or type it in your calculator. I'm going to write them out here just so you have them. So from A to B, so I would say 8 minus 4, x sub 2 minus x sub 1 squared, and 4 minus 5. And you can do the work for each, and you should get 4.1. And I'm going to do the same thing for B to C. So I'm going to start with C, so 7 minus 8, and then 8 minus 4. All right, I'll give you a second to type that in your calculator and do any work. All right, and you should have gotten 4.1. And then the same thing for C to A. All right, so 4 minus 7, 5 minus 8, and you should get 4.2. All right, so as you can see, I have two equal sides, so this is an isosceles triangle. All right, the next one says to find the perimeter of the triangle. So perimeter again would be the distance formula, because I need to know the length of all the sides. So I need from A to B, from B to C, and from C to A. So pause the video now and go ahead and find the distance of all three sides. Alright, so for AB you should have gotten 5.1, for BC 5.7, and for CA 5.1. And then I just need to add those three up to find the perimeter, which is 15.9 units. All right, for number 3, do these 3 points create a right triangle? Okay, so to determine if it's a right triangle, we need to figure out, is there a right angle? Which means two of the sides would be perpendicular. And the formula that tells us if two sides or two line segments are perpendicular is slope. We're looking for opposite reciprocal slope. So I'm just going to find the slope of all three sides. I'm going to start with AB. Remember, slope is y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. All right, so that's negative 3 over negative 4, which is 3/4. And I'm going to do the same thing for BC. So 2 minus negative 1 negative 3 minus negative 2. Lots of negatives here. So that's 3 over negative 1, so that would be negative 3. All right, and then CA. So I'm going to do 2 minus 2. And 2 minus negative 3. So that will be 0 over 5, which is 0. All right, so none of these are opposite reciprocals. That means there are no perpendicular sides. So this is not a right triangle. All right, number 4, determine if the diagonals of this parallelogram are congruent. So if they're congruent, they're going to have an equal distance. So we're going to be using the distance formula. Now, if you think about a parallelogram, let me just kind of draw one out here. So A, B, C, D. The diagonals would be A to C and B to D. So I don't need to do all 4 sides. I need to do the diagonals. All right, so go ahead and pause the video now and find the distance from A to C and then from B to D. All right, so using the distance formula, I got 7.1 and 7.1. So they are congruent. That would be yes, they are equal in length. All right, number 5, determine if the diagonals bisect each other. So that would be midpoint. Because if they bisect each other, they're going to the middle of both. They're cutting it into 2 equal pieces on both sides. And because I'm talking about diagonals, I'm going to do A to C and B to D. And remember, midpoint, you add the x coordinates and divide by 2. Let me actually move this over a little bit. Okay, so x coordinates over 2, y coordinates over 2. So negative 6 plus 6, that's 0. 0 over 2 is 0. 2 plus 6 is 8, divided by 2 is 4. All right, so then we would do BD. So negative 1 plus 1 is 0, divided by 2 is 0. 7 plus 1 is 8, divided by 2 is 4. So that would be yes, because they have the same midpoint. They are cutting each other in half. All right, number 6, prove that the points of the quadrilateral create a rhombus. So we need to talk about the properties of a rhombus. Remember, a rhombus has all equal sides, so that's going to be the distance formula. And if we determine that it has all equal sides, then that's great, but that could also be a square. So to prove it's not a square, we need to prove that there are no right angles, and that would ensure that it is a rhombus. So we also need to do the slope. So I'm going to list out my sides here. Now you may need another sheet of paper to do this work, but we're going to do the distance of all 4 and the slope of all 4. So go ahead and pause the video now and try that by yourself. Okay, so for the distance, I got 5 for each side. So that does prove that it has all equal sides, but it still could be a rhombus or a square. So I needed to do slope. So for slope, I got positive 4/3, negative 4/3, positive 4/3, negative 4/3. Now, these are opposite slopes, but they are not opposite reciprocal slopes. So I do not have any right angles. So that proves it's not a square. So therefore it is a rhombus. All right, let's try a couple other examples. All right, let's look at some more examples. Number 7 says, find the area of the triangle with the following points. So go ahead and pause the video now and plot those 3 points on your graph. All right, so A is at -1, -4. B is at -5, 0. C is at 5, 2. And we are going to connect those and create a triangle. All right, so we want to find the area. And remember, area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. And the base and the height have to be perpendicular. So you can look at the picture and tell, at your graph and tell, which two sides are perpendicular. It should be these. AB and AC. This forms a right angle here. So I need to find the lengths of those so that I can substitute that into my formula. So I'm going to find the length of AB, or the distance from A to B, and from A to C. And I'm going to use the distance formula to do that. All right, so I'm going to label A and B x1, y1, x2, y2, and go ahead and substitute that into my distance formula. So x of 2 minus x of 1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. Of course, you can change those minus a negative into pluses. All right, and I'm going to type this in my calculator. You can simplify a step further if you want before you type it in. It's up to you. And for AB, I get a length of about 5.7 when I round to the tens place. Go ahead and pause the video now and try the same thing with AC. Okay, so you should have gotten, let's see, let's change these. So I'm going to leave A as x1, y1, and C as x2, y2. I'm going to change that. So 5 minus negative 1 squared, or 5 plus 1, plus 2 minus negative 4 squared. And I got 8.5. So I'm going to substitute those two values into my area formula. It doesn't matter which is the base and which is the height because we're just multiplying. So that gives me an area of about 24.2 units squared. All right, and then last example, go ahead on number 8 and pause the video and plot those 4 points on your graph. Okay, so here is A, B, C, and D. And I'm going to connect those to make a rectangle. All right, so I want to find the area of that rectangle, and I can use the area formula, base times height. So basically we need one of the lengths and one of the widths. You can also write the formula length times width. Let's do it that way just so we don't get confused. So basically I need one of the longer sides and one of the shorter sides. So I'm going to choose AD and CD. And I need the lengths or the distances for those. So go ahead and pause the video now and see if you can find the distance for those sides. All right, so for AD, the longer side, I got 7.1. And for the shorter side, I got 4.2. Those are my lengths. It would be the same for the others as well, since this is a rectangle. All right, so I'm going to multiply those together. And I get about 29.8 units squared. All right, you can stop the video now and complete your practice.